Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is a really, really special one. It is my interview with Robert Goodland, and I have a feeling it's going to be the first of many. Robert came on to share his story of overcoming a whole lot of trauma in his life. He is a sexual assault survivor. He has overcome family trauma. He has overcome a near-death experience. And through a whole lot of self-awareness, a lot of reflection, a lot of healing, he now is in this place where he is offering this incredible coaching. He actually uses horses in his coaching. It's called Gestalt coaching. And he helps other people overcome different types of trauma. Now, Robert came on to share his story, which I think is really, really important. He is willing and able to go deep, to be vulnerable, and to share that which a lot of people would shy away from. His insight and his wisdom and his ability to speak on these topics is refreshing, it is uplifting, it is inspiring. So whether I believe that all of us in our own way have trauma in our past. I think it's inevitable. I think it's part of life. And whether you are aware of your past traumas or not, I really encourage you to listen to this episode from start to finish. We talk a lot about his story, obviously, in his past and how he's overcome that. But also, he just has some really, really incredible tips and steps and guidance to help you do the same. I can't wait for you to meet Robert. Honestly, it was such a refreshing interview for me to do. Like I said, I have a feeling he's going to be around here on a semi-regular basis. But for today, I want you to jump in and be introduced to Robert Goodland. Here he is. My name is Katie Allen, and this is Self-Love Ignited. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Self-Love Ignited. Today on the podcast, I'm interviewing Robert Goodland. Robert, welcome to the podcast. This interview has been delayed a couple of times on my behalf, and I'm really, really happy that we're finally doing this. Why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, Katie, and thank you. And truly, it was quite all right that it was delayed. There were some important things happening for you. Again, my name is Robert Goodland. I live in Wisconsin. And for those of you that are not in the USA, I just recently got home from a trip out to Denver, Colorado. And so if my cats are a bit needy, that's probably why you might hear them and see them. So sorry about that. But they're children. I'm a retired firefighter from a career fire department. I was a paramedic and a firefighter full-time for 25 years, or I should say career for 25 years, and all told about 30 years prior to that. Mm-hmm. I live in a small place out in the middle of the woods with my 5 horses and 2 cats, service dog, barn cats.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And give us a little preview. What is it that you do, just to give people some context of things before we start?
Yeah. When I left the fire department, I had horses, and I was a horsemanship instructor, meaning I help people that own horses and are having some kind of issue that they want a trainer or somebody to help them with. And I kind of always joked it was a matter of I helped people understand why horses do what they do and don't do what we want them to do. And from that, it progressed into I coach now. I'm a gestaltist. I've been in school for the last 4 years, learning how to help people with emotional trauma. And I partner with my horses to help people on their journeys to healing.
I think that's amazing. I just think that's incredible. We have in our initial chat, you and I talked a little bit about my background with horses and how I credit a lot of that to my understanding of like people and energy and how to relate to people. And so I'm really fascinated to get more into that. But before we get into that, I want to hear about you and the beginnings and how you got here, because nobody does this work for no reason, right? Oh, and
Yes.
who's this? Who's joined you?
This is Allie. This is the old girl. She's probably 14 or 15. She's a rescue. So
she's
thank
beautiful.
you. And she might sneeze in her ear for just a little bit. So
That's okay. For
so
anybody, sorry, for anybody who does not see the video, Ali is currently sitting on his shoulders and it's adorable.
yeah.
Okay, so Robert, I want to hear about your story. So this podcast is all about telling the stories of people just like you who have come from a place of not liking themselves, not loving themselves, not accepting themselves, and going on this journey and getting to this place of self-love, self-acceptance, whatever that is to you. So I would love for you to take us back to the beginning of where these challenges started for you.
Started. Sure. And the beginnings, huh? Well, I guess I would have to, it would start with the fact that my parents divorced when I was very young, when I was 2. And I'm the youngest of 4, and I'm the youngest by a lot. My oldest sister is 20 years older than I am. My next brother closest to me is 10 years older. So in other words, when I was 8, he was graduating high school and going quite a ways away to college. And so by then it was just mom and I. And so there really wasn't a lot around. And there were a lot of things happening for my mom that I didn't know what was going on for her. She had struggles with her own mental illness. She was in a relationship that I didn't know anything about until I was 15, 16 years old. So there wasn't too many people, there wasn't anybody around. And that put me into a position to where one summer when I was 11, I was groomed and sexually assaulted by a lifeguard at the beach. I grew up in a very small town, and so it had a really, really nice public beach. So that really kind of set the stage. And again, I didn't realize that at the time. There were a lot of things that began happening that we now know as an adult and more informed and more aware. We look back and go, oh yeah. But that happened. The assault happened when I was 11, and I started drinking and using drugs when I was 12 and 13 years old. And by 17 years old, I was very heavily into my addiction. And so I went through drug and alcohol treatment the summer before my senior year of high school. And then kind of came from there. Once out of school, I then found out my dad came and mentioned, and I literally say mentioned, that he wasn't my father. And so it took a few years, and he made an accusation as to who my father was, and it was the man that my mom was now married to, which is the one that she was having the relationship with the entire time that I wasn't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's version is that he was my father. Mom wouldn't confirm that, didn't confirm that until about 9 years later. She finally came clean on it, and that was the truth. Mm-hmm. A man named Bill, who I thought was my stepfather, was actually my biological father, was my father. So it made a lot of sense. Some of the things that had happened as I was growing up, there was a lot of distance with mom. She was always very preoccupied. She was not, even though she may physically be in the room, she wasn't mentally or oftentimes emotionally around. Mm-hmm. So again, that's kind of what set up the assault, because this guy was nice and he was friendly and he was the same age as my older brother. And so that set the tone for a lot of how I view the world, how I view myself, how I have spent tens of thousands of dollars on therapy, that kind of thing, on that self-esteem issue. And do I bring value, and am I significant? And all of those questions that we have as we become aware. I started working for the Department of Corrections after high school. Mm-hmm. As a correctional officer. Quickly realized that was not my calling. It was hard enough working with the inmates. The staff were also bad, especially staff that I saw that had been there for any length of time. Mm-hmm. Kind of had that same very negative, very self-defeating, came from a place that just wasn't healthy. for them, and that is not what I wanted for my life, and ended up leaving that for the fire service. I'd been doing volunteer fire and EMS. So I came here to Eau Claire and was working on the fire department here, getting established in my career 2007. So about halfway through my career, 10, 12 years into my career, I had a workplace accident, a scuba diving accident. I was trapped under the ice because of an equipment failure. All right, go babe. And was unconscious and not breathing when I was pulled out from under the ice. That really set the tone for the rest of what happens now, where my life ended up all stemmed from that. That diving accident, I now know. I had a hard time clearing that trauma because of the childhood trauma that had never been resolved. I never told anybody. I don't even have any recollection of hiding it. I don't ever recall thinking I want to tell somebody and can't. It was so far away. It was as if it happened to somebody else. So once the diving accident occurred and the panic and everything, the panic attacks, the claustrophobia, all of the things that began coming from that, I really began to see how my horses, because I'd had horses for a couple of years when the accident occurred in 2007. That was the only place I felt safe. It was the only place that I felt not judged. I was extremely suicidal. I'd been suicidal as a kid, and after the accident, I'd come from a place of peace when I had drowned. And I very distinctly remember that place, from being from an amazing place of panic to the exact extreme opposite of peace, a very, very profound peace, only to be ripped back out of that. And now I've been brought back to a world that doesn't believe me, that thinks I'm making it up, that thinks I'm, making more out of it than I should be. And I just so badly wanted to return to that peace. And the only way for quite some time following that was my belief that if I took my own life, I could return to that peace. Yeah. The only place that I didn't feel that way was when I was with my horses. So the relationship that I was in ended about probably 9-10 months after the accident, and I moved to where I live now. And then I pursued my teaching of my horsemanship career, thinking I couldn't go back to the fire department. And it was through that career that I met the person that turned me on to the coaching program that I ultimately took. So it was in retrospect, you look back, there were a lot of dots that got connected. And the story of how I ended up in that program is crazy. The universe just kept tapping, program name, Touched by a Horse and Melissa Pierce just kept coming up. My friend Stacy brought it up twice. Another guy that, doesn't even know who Stacy is says, hey, I think you should become a coach and you should, talk to my friend Melissa Pierce. I'm like, come on, is this the same? I'm texting my friend Stacy under the table going, Melissa Pierce, is that the one? She's, yeah, wow. The universe just kept saying, you have to go take this class. Yeah. The beautiful thing about taking that class was I was required, in order to graduate the first 2-year program, I had to do my own work. Yeah. I had to face my sexual assault. I had to face my family dynamics. I had to get into the ugly of who I am, the coping mechanisms that I had developed over the years, ever since I was a kid. How do you get attention? And they're not all healthy, and it's not all pretty. And some of it's embarrassing, and you start pulling apart the shame and all of the things that go with it. But I had to do that in order to graduate, and I could not have been in a better, safer place to do it. And so I graduated from my coaching program in January of 2020. Yeah. And then the world stopped. And so I couldn't really start coaching. I wasn't confident enough to do it by phone or by Zoom yet.
Mhm.
And it was probably all right. I mean, it was a pretty intensive 2 years, so it was okay to kind of have some downtime. I continued to read, I continued to study trauma. I knew emotional, spiritual trauma was going to be my thing because that's where I came from.
Yeah.
So it gave me another year of that. And then I took the graduate program, which I'm just finishing up now. That's where I just came from. Their annual celebration is every year in September. And next month I will go for my last in-person stint with them. And I'll take my final exam, which I have to coach a patient, coach a client in front of my cohorts and peers and my
Yep.
instructors.
Yeah.
So,
No pressure.
yeah. Yeah, no pressure at all. So, I mean, everything, and as I look back in my life, everything led to me doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
I'm in the perfect place doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I don't do any of this now without the things that have occurred. And
Yeah.
that was a huge shift for me to move out of the victim mode
Mhm.
into I'm going to use this. This is something that happened. This is the hand that I was dealt. And it is truly up to me. I have the choice on what I do with it.
Yeah.
And divine intervention, there was lots and lots and lots of that. I can't take credit for all of it. Certain things were very deliberately put in my path. Certain people were
Mhm.
very deliberately put in my path.
Mhm.
But I still had to pray and move my feet. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think, we've all heard you know, we've all heard of the idea of taking the "why is this happening to me?" and seeing it as this is
yeah.
happening for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you are like the perfect example of that, right? Because it's one thing just to hear it said and go, "Oh, well, I don't really see how that could work." But it's like
Yeah.
you said all of all the trauma in your past, and you had a significant amount of trauma and different types of trauma, right? Sexual stuff, family stuff, like near death experience stuff. Like a lot of you had a lot of layers, and
Yes.
it's all here right now, all for a reason. But when you're in it, you don't know why you're in it.
Oh, and it's painful when you're in it.
Of course it
It's
is.
it's just horrible. And to anybody listening, I mean, if you're still in the middle of it, we get it.
Yeah.
Katie and I get it. We understand where you're at.
Yeah.
But know that there is something on the other side of this. It
Yes.
doesn't have to stay that way.
Yes.
And that's the beautiful piece of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that sort of that perspective that you have now, that perspective of this all happens for me, this all happens for a purpose. Is that something that you gained through your coaching program? Is that something that is just innately within you? Like, where did that perspective come from, do you think?
That's a great question. And I truly have thought about that
Mhm.
a lot because in the roles that you and I do, we want to help people gain that insight and perspective. And so we have to look inward, say, what's the genesis of that for us?
Yeah.
I, yes, and yes.
Yeah.
I clearly, there was something innate because some of these things were not conscious decisions.
Yeah.
I have always been somebody who um, I I wear my heart on my sleeve. Um, if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs or Kirsty temperament disorder, I'm a 20F. Like my heart, every emotion that I'm feeling, and I am always looking for the deeper meaning. That's that's just me. I'm wired that way.
Mhm.
And that's good and bad. I mean, when I'm augering in, I can auger in with the best of them because I'm looking and all depending on my focus, right? If I'm looking for that bad, looking for the sorrow, looking for the sadness, that's exactly what I find.
Yeah.
So the ability and what I've learned little by little is that if I shift that focus, as my coach, my program coach, beautiful Miss Marsha, says, where do you want to shine your flashlight?
Yeah.
What are you shining your flashlight on? So that part is a learned skill. And I very consciously shift where I'm shining my flashlight.
Mhm.
And man, the more that I'm focusing on the good, I see the good. why something has happened. Um, when I have a client show up in my building that does not tell me, because I don't do an intake. I don't want an intake when they come. I want them as they are. I don't want to form any opinions, right? I don't ask people, I don't advertise. I want victims of sexual abuse. I want people that have had their sexual boundaries violated. But that's who's showing up in my arena.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to connect the dots and say, I'm grateful now that I was sexually assaulted, because had this client shown up and I didn't know what that felt like to have your sexual boundaries violated,
Mm-hmm.
I I can't come to anything with anything for this client. So the ability to shift that and say, okay, would I have wished, yeah, that an 11-year-old kid wouldn't have been sexually violated by a guy at the beach? Yeah, that's not the way it went.
Yeah.
So I do have to physically shift my flashlight. I have to focus it. So that is a skill that I've learned. I've gotten, there's difference between getting people's opinion and advice and good counsel.
Mm.
Counsel comes from people that you want advice from and that have, right, that have sage wisdom.
Yeah.
And I've very intentionally sought out people that are where either they are where I want to be, they're in a healthy place, they see the world in a way that I want to see the world, they see joy the way I want to see joy. That is, again, I guess, another very conscious choice of where do I spend my time, where do I spend my effort, and I do my very best to spend it with other humans, people that the universe has put in my path that are like-minded, that do see things the way that I see them.
Mm-hmm.
Will also challenge me when I'm still not handling or doing things,
Yeah.
quite right. They'll challenge my thinking.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, but I know where their heart is. It's not just some goofball giving me,
Yeah.
their unsolicited advice. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
just
not their
understand.
ego. It's not their ego
Yeah.
coming in and challenging. It's they're coming in for you, for your highest
Yes.
good. Yes.
And then my ego flares.
Well, yes.
And
Yes.
I go,
Welcome to human nature. Yes.
yeah. But the really cool thing is that on this journey, on the journey that I've chosen to take on healing,
Yeah.
when I can feel that now, when that flares, I get the opportunity to go, oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
What's coming up with that. And I know better than I've ever known what's theirs, and you and I are the ones talking, what's yours and what's mine. Like if you said something that I got a flare, I'm like, that's mine.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that coming from? Boy, maybe I don't feel significant, or maybe I don't feel, heard or whatever. But I think it's really cool to have the ability now to go, oh, I can feel that. Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's going back to one of my past traumas.
Oh yeah.
Something I've been wired to hear things in a certain way,
Yeah.
even though you may not have said it. And let's talk about the heart of conflict in our personal relationships, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's so important to say that though, right? It's like you were wired this way. The trauma in your
Yeah.
life has wired your brain a certain way, but that doesn't mean that you're powerless and you just have to be like, well, it is the way it is. Absolutely not.
Exactly.
Absolutely
No,
not, right?
science and neuroplasticity
Yeah.
says that I now can rewire my brain. I can do things. And just like saying, I'm going to focus on positive or I'm going to focus on negative, focusing on positive rewires your brain.
Yeah.
So it's just because something has happened doesn't have to mean it defines your life.
Yeah.
It can simply be a part of and that's, my traumas are a part of my life. They are, but they don't define who I am. I get to do that.
Yeah.
I get to do that. That's my choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to just jump back to where
Please.
you said when you were in your coaching program, the 2-year program that you first did, and you had to look at your own stuff. It was a requirement for you to graduate. But also I believe as coaches, as healers, if we don't look at our own stuff, we can't help somebody else through that, right? Like it's
Yep.
in order to help somebody else, you have to help yourself first.
Yep.
Put on your
Yep.
own oxygen mask or life jacket or whatever you want to say.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
what did that look like for you? Was that like therapy? Was that coaching? Was that working with horses? Like what on a tangible level, what did that actually look like?
Yeah. So first of all, know that I did an intake call with Melissa.
Mhm.
So everybody has to do an intake call with Melissa before you get accepted into the program. She's really looking to make sure that people are a good fit for the program, and especially being a male, because predominantly the coaching world is female.
Mhm.
The horse world is female. The majority of the students that are in Melissa's program are female. And the last thing she confided in me well after the fact, but she said, I'm really picky about the men that I let in because most of the women in the program have had their boundaries violated
Yeah.
in one way or another. So she said, I have to be ultra careful about who I let in. So in that intake call, I can remember, first of all, thinking this one doesn't even like me. I truly think, and please know now she's just my absolute dearest friend. I can cry at how much I so appreciate what she saw in me.
Mm.
But for me, emotionally coming into that program, and also keep in mind, by that time, I had 30 years of emergency services. I had 30 years of car accidents and suicides and abuse and, you name it, I saw it. And I had 30 years of that on top of my own childhood trauma, on top of all of this. And I can remember going to my very first, because you have to do in person several times a year in this program. And that's where we do our coaching. And in the beginning, I get coached.
Mhm.
In the beginning, Melissa does all the coaching. And as you move along the program, it shifts and I start coaching. But I can remember telling her that all of these traumas they went into me one at a time, and they almost killed me. I was terrified, and I'm not even exaggerating. I was terrified. If we start ripping scabs off and they come out all at once, I would truly felt like it would kill me.
Yeah.
Like, do you trust me? I'm like, yes. And that became a theme for her
Mm.
and I throughout my programs. Like, I got you.
Yeah.
So know that I was so afraid of getting into all of the things that I knew were in there, that I was going to have to face an awful lot of shadows. So the coaching itself was done with horses, in the presence of horses.
Mhm.
Unless the weather was really crummy in Arizona, then we were in the house. And but it's Gestalt based coaching. So it's using Gestalt practices and principles, which um, involves the here and now. It involves an experiential learning, an experiential um, experience, lack of a better word, I guess.
Mhm.
Uh, and Melissa her background is a mental health professional for many years, as well as a horsewoman, and she combined them and saw how people were doing. They were more settled in the presence of the horses.
Yeah.
And so that was the birth of the program. So, but it was done, there were usually 14 of us or so, 10 to 14 other students in class. And so we were being coached, doing the deep process work with Melissa. We were doing small dyads, we're doing small little polarity pieces or metaphor pieces, is how we got introduced to coaching ourselves. So we would kind of coach each other on small things, but big pieces, the big stuff, my sexual assault, we tackled on my very first day of core. It's like, if we're doing this, we're going big. This has to get out. It
Yeah.
just, by then it had to get out of me.
Yeah.
I had to tell the story. I had to feel it
Yeah.
because I had set it aside. And so, in the presence of my classmates and in the presence of a beautiful horse that passed not long after this experience, and Melissa being very compassionately guided through the process of going back, bringing that incident to the present, to the here and now, and finishing the big pieces of it. So it was done through different ways, but it was just done very skillfully, very compassionately and lovingly. And Higgins, the horse, was just a beautiful presence in that.
Mhm.
I'll never forget Higgins being there in
Mhm.
that piece.
Yeah.
Did some body release.
Yeah.
It was a big piece. So yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't kill me coming back out. It was super important to know that it did not kill me coming
Yeah.
back out. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, that fear that you had, which I would think that most trauma survivors on some level, whether conscious or not, have. right? It's like you've been compartmentalizing, you've been pushing it down for so long, and it hasn't killed you. So we're just going to keep doing that. We're just going to keep pushing it down. We're going to keep it inside, but you
Yeah.
can't heal from that. And you're forever stuck in this horrible cycle. And you were brave enough, and you created a safe space. You found the space that you needed. You
I found
found,
it. And
yeah.
I'll tell you, the people that I was just with, a bunch of the graduates from the program these last few days, and man, that is my tribe.
Yeah.
Those are my people. And yeah, it's an amazing sacred space to be with individuals that will hold you in your darkest shadows and in your deepest shame.
Yeah.
That will just see you non-judgmentally, and it proves to you, you know, because so many of us, we come to this place of when we're in the middle of our traumas, that everybody is against us. Like the world is a horrible place, and and we see so much division. And, you know, today, this was a place for me to truly see that there was good in the world. Man, there were some beautiful people in the world,
Yeah.
and not everybody was trying to harm me,
Yeah.
because our systems go into that trauma mode, that trauma response. And for me, it just stayed. It was one thing after another into a career that then it was daily. So my body just stayed in trauma response
Yeah.
always, and it never had a chance to let down or let go.
Yeah.
And those people and Melissa gave me an opportunity to see who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and actually see that I do bring value,
Yeah.
feel that, and be okay saying it,
Yeah.
instead of just, you know, mom taught me humility to like the nth degree. But have a safe place to start offloading some of these things that had just been weighing me down for so many years,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
So grateful for that program, and the people that I now know. Led me to you.
Yeah.
I never would have found you. I took a speakers, it was a grad course through school, a
Mm-hmm.
speakers boot camp. And somebody said, there's people out there looking for guests on podcasts.
Yep.
So get out there, start speaking, and so that's why I saw your request.
Mm-hmm.
So it led me to all of that. Every single thing that has happened in my life
Yep.
has led me to you.
Yep. Yeah. It's
That's a cool
incredible.
thing.
It's
It
incredible,
is.
isn't it? When you have that perspective on it and you can look at it. And so every single thing has led you and I to this moment right now.
This moment, and
This moment. Yes.
anybody that's listening,
Yes.
it brought Katie and I to this moment, to your ear.
Yeah.
You know, it's just crazy when you think of the universe and what had to get in place. And to me, that's the exciting part about life now.
Yeah.
After my accident, after the diving accident, there was a mindset. Part of my incredible anxiety was my shifts. I worked a 24-hour shift. It started 7 in the morning, and it would go until 7 the following morning.
Mm-hmm.
The accident occurred at about 4 p.m. And I always joked, I always said, not really a joke, I guess. If I'd have known at 7 a.m. what was going to happen, that my life was forever going to be changed by 4 p.m., I was never, ever going to view the world the same way again.
Yeah.
I would forever be changed. I'd have called in sick, right? After the accident, after I was brought back, the anxiety was, if at 7 a.m. I didn't know what was going to happen by 4 p.m., what don't I know about today?
Yeah.
What horrible thing can happen today that I have absolutely no idea? That, through time, through healing, through Gestalt coaching, through everything from 2007 to today, has led to a brand new approach. I had no idea that you were going to come into my life, that we were going to meet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really cool, and this is exciting. And I think it's the awareness of the fact of all of the things that have led to this very moment is so exciting. What other cool things can happen today that I don't know about?
Yeah.
That's the shift.
Yeah. 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 It's the same question, right? What's going to happen today that I don't know about? But like you said earlier, where are you shining your flashlight? Is it the anxiety, the fear, the terror, the trauma talking? Because then that's what you're going to look for. What horrible things are going to come? Or is it like the beautiful things and the amazing connections and the healing and the growing and all of that? if that's what you're looking for, that's what you're going to find. It's the same
Find it.
question.
You will find it.
You
Yep.
will.
If you look, you will find it. I promise you.
Yeah.
Either
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's life, right? Life is constantly unfolding, constantly presenting us with new things. And we all have the
Yeah.
power to choose what we do with it every
Follow,
day.
shine, or fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I am really curious on this journey that you've been on, this multi-layered, textured, and crazy up and down journey that you've been on. Where you
Yeah.
are now, where you sit today, does this feel like a journey of self-love? Does that term ring true? Is it self-acceptance, or is there something else that feels most true to you?
All of it.
Okay.
It is, self-acceptance. There's, in my journey, know this, my journey continues.
Oh yeah.
Everything I am still learning how to accept myself. I'm still learning how to love myself. I'm still uncovering and learning awarenesses. My journey, I will, until I'm dead, I will continue that journey. Self-acceptance, absolutely. Learning that there are parts of myself. I've got some amazing parts that are really cool guy, and I have some parts that are kind of the underbelly, that are kind of the shadow parts of me.
Yeah.
They are all parts of me.
Yeah.
And so learning to accept that I have all of these parts within me and they all are me. And I need to make friends with all of them. We all live in the same house. Some of them have bigger rooms than other ones, right?
Yeah.
Some of them just kind of live in closets. Some of them live in the basement, but they are all part of me. And the more I try to banish one of those parts of self, the harder they're going to start yelling at me and trying to get my attention. So learning to accept that, learning the self-love part of it for me, and it always feels kind of corny to say that,
Yeah.
Especially being a guy, but it's about learning and the awarenesses that are within me. What is healthy for me? What does feel right to me? What are the things that I'm going to do for myself that are healthy? Like, I love chocolate badly, right? It's probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but I do love it.
Yeah.
I also love going for walks. I kind of love eating healthy, kind of.
Yeah.
I know when I should do it, but I start to appreciate who I am as a physical being, as a spiritual being, as an emotional being, and all of that. And what is it that all of those parts need? That's self-love to me. And that is absolutely something that I've had to learn to do. I've had to learn to be aware of who I am, how I am feeling somatically, and what is right for me. Making good decisions, listening to my intuition, truly listening to my intuition, knowing that I have the ability to tap into the universe and be guided and directed.
Yeah.
I mean, some call it religion, call it whatever you want. But I know that I am of that same energy.
Yeah.
That's all self-love.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to do it. And I don't always succeed. Today's a good day, right? Not every day. I get sad. Life still happens. We've had losses. We've had some deaths that have hit pretty close to home recently. It's still tough to take. I still cry. I feel it, and then we move through it rather than just ignoring it.
I was going to say, but that in and of itself is also an act of loving yourself, allowing yourself to feel, allowing yourself to express those feelings, creating a safe space within yourself and within your environment to allow healing. Like that is love. And I feel like, I think the first time that we spoke, I talked a little bit about how this podcast used to only be about women, and only quite recently I started sort of inviting men on because I realized that we need to have these conversations, right? This is a human experience. It's not a gendered experience.
Right.
But that being said, there are some differences which are really important. And obviously, as a woman, I can't have that insight, but you can. And understanding that for a guy, maybe it's like, oh, self-love. That's like an extra, like kind of cringy, kind of the term. But it's not what you think it is, right? It's taking care of yourself. It's asking yourself what you need. It's creating a safe space to like express your emotions, whether that be an emotion that you label as good or bad,
Thank you.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones that label emotions. Emotions just are. We're
Yes.
the ones that say they're good or bad. And when they're
Yes.
bad, how, I thank you for saying that. Um, because the outside world, so oftentimes, if we're having a quote unquote bad emotion, man, they want you to move through it like, oh, you gotta buck up, buttercup, move right through that. Don't stay. Part of what you're saying, and I could not agree more. Part of that self-love is saying, no, this is how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. And it's
I just,
okay.
it's okay.
Yeah.
This is a human emotion.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Thank you
interesting.
for saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I say all the time, I'm a crier. I like crying. Crying feels good to me. It's an outlet. It's a release. I have that level of awareness. And when I haven't cried for a while, I can feel it. There's like a tightness.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
and some people get it. Some people are like, oh, absolutely, I get it. Let it out. Feels great. Other people, as soon as you start crying, they're like, oh no, 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 you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Just get over it or suck it up or whatever it happens to be. And it's like because in their minds, and I can see this now, right? In their
Yeah.
minds, that's
Yeah.
bad or it's scary or it's
It's
wrong.
uncomfortable for them.
It's uncomfortable, right?
Uncomfortable.
Right.
And a comment that you made, at the beginning of this, when you said about doing our own work as coaches,
Yeah.
it's because we need to be able to sit with people in that place
Yeah.
without judging it or fixing it.
Yeah.
And people that haven't done their work, so to speak,
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable when somebody else is in that really dark place. That's the beauty. Melissa made a quote one time, and she said, we as coaches, and those of us that work like you and I that work with people in these places, we get a front row seat and a first class ticket to somebody else's life. And I'm not there to fix it. I'm just here to be with you when you're in the hole.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so the outside world does oftentimes, oh, we got to move through that because, man, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
So you need to get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
not anymore.
Mm-mm.
We're not doing that anymore.
No, we're not doing that anymore. And those are my peeps.
Yeah.
That's not my tribe.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can
Absolutely.
help you, maybe I can help you understand this better, and so they can be in a different place.
Yes.
But yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to hear, how has this journey of self-love, self-acceptance, healing your trauma, all of this,
Mm.
you've talked a little bit about how, your career as EMS and as a firefighter and sort of led you to coaching.
Mhm.
What does your business look like now? Who do you help? How do you help them? Is it online? Is it in person? Like, tell us about that, what that looks like.
Thank you. Yeah. My business now, I live way out in the country, which is important to me because it's secluded. So people can just yell and scream and swear and nobody's calling the cops on us, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We get a chance to get all that out. I partner with, I've got 5 horses, and prior to last winter, actually this spring, I worked outside. So I was contingent on the weather, and because clients would come and I want to be in the presence of a horse doing it. So I built a very large building, an indoor riding arena, so that I now coach inside. That was completed this spring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing clients daily, and it's all kinds of people are gracing my threshold. From, as I mentioned, I've had some people with some amazing, oh God, heartbreaking stories of their boundaries being violated in ways that I couldn't even imagine, to military veterans, to first responders, to anybody and everybody that wants to clear the things of their past that they know are in their way now. Well,
Yeah.
they've become aware enough to know these things are in the way. Um, I'm I do some phone coaching. I do some Zoom coaching, like this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the majority of it's in person. I have people that come great distance to spend a few hours here and spend some time with the horses. I am preparing to do some workshops and retreats. I'm looking forward to being able to do some destination retreats and bring the Gestalt coaching to some pretty cool climates.
Yep.
In hopes of using that to further heal. I am writing. I just had I wrote my first essay that I submitted for a book that just came out this week. So I'm hoping that that can get in the hands of some first responders. It's about one of my accidents that I was involved with as a volunteer firefighter, and the journey that I took moving through that. Some friends of mine were killed, and I was the first responder on scene, not knowing it was my friends.
Yeah.
Actually, that was a girl that I'd been dating just a few weeks before.
Wow.
She was killed instantly, but I didn't know right away that it was her.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote about that story, and that's just was published. I'm in the process of writing a memoir. That's been a long journey, and I think there's a bit to go yet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I see clients in person, over the phone,
Okay.
Zoom,
Okay.
retreats to follow.
Amazing. Amazing. Do you have a website or social media? Where's the best place for people to find you?
I do. My website is theheartofahorse.com. All
Beautiful.
spelled out, theheartofahorse.com.
Okay.
Uh, I am on Facebook and Instagram as myself, as Robert Goodland.
Yep.
There'll be a horse in the profile picture.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, Robert, I want to ask you if there's somebody listening to this who is maybe where you used to be, who is maybe still in the depths, in the dark, in the shadows, but has obviously, if they're listening, there's some level of self-awareness. There's some spark, right? There's something there. Is there an exercise or a practice or something that you would recommend to them as a first step to take?
Yes. First of all, if you're listening to this podcast, then you're all, like as Katie said, you're already self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And so my first suggestion is keep listening to Katie. That's the first thing you need to do, because you found it and the reason I say that is you found something with good information. You found something that's positive. You found something to start rewiring your brain. Keep doing it. If there's episodes that you've listened to that resonated with you, go back and listen to them again. There was a message in there. Keep rewiring, keep feeding your brain, feeding your system, your soul with good stuff. Find other good stuff. There's a lot of podcasts. If you're listening to podcasts, there's a lot of really good podcasts that you can listen to. You found a good one here. Be aware of where you're shining your flashlight. What is it that you're looking at? Are you focusing only on the negative? What if you start looking for, if you woke up every morning and just said, I'm looking for abundance today.
Mm.
I will find abundance today. I will find grace today. Breathing. When we are in trauma response and trauma mode, we breathe very shallow. When we're getting anxious, we breathe shallow. I implore you, when you feel yourself getting tight, when things start getting hard, take a really deep breath all the way down to your belly, slow in through your nose, exhale longer than you inhaled. Take a deep breath in, pause, very slowly let that out, and pause again, and do that several times. That helps reset your nervous system.
Mm.
Know that things have happened to you. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not damaged. And I don't care what's happened to you. You are not broken or damaged despite what others have told you. You are a human being having a human experience, and something happened to you. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. Don't be afraid to reach out to people that can guide you, carry buckets of water for you if you're still on fire.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Katie and I are trying to do, is carry buckets of water back through for those that are still being consumed. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Katie.
Yeah. And I just want to say too, just where you mentioned the breathing, and this happens to me every time someone talks about it. Instantly, I become super aware of my breath, and I take a couple of really slow, deep breaths. Just you mentioning it and me listening, it like cues my brain, slow it down, slow it down,
Perfect.
slow it
Yep.
down. And yeah, anyway, there's lots of good things you said in there, but
There's so much.
I just wanted to reflect that back, that that's like an
Yep.
instant thing
Yep.
that happens within our bodies. Yeah.
It is. And
Yeah.
breathing is it. We do it automatically, but we can be intentional.
We sure can. You sure can.
We can be
Okay.
intentional. And that's something that our lives can be intentional.
Yeah.
That's maybe another part of that. What life just happens, and life can be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And I am living my best life
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
today,
Yeah.
and you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Robert, we are going to leave it there. I feel like there's so much more that you and I could talk about, but for the
Yeah.
sake of not going on for too long, I think we're going to leave it there for
Yes,
today.
I've
Thank you.
so enjoyed this. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the time. Thank you for showing up how you show up in the world. Um, it's phenomenal. And I thank you for allowing me to spend time with you today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing bravely, courageously, vulnerably. When we share, we help others. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.